The code recognises the benefits of sprinklers. However, there's a few myths that I need to quash straight away now on sprinklers. Because what do you think of them? If I said I'd come round your house today and fit a sprinkler in your house, how many people would you want them? Most people don't want them. Why? Because they don't understand them. What they say is, what happens if it goes off by accident? What happens if you're watching Holby City, you sat there and it suddenly goes off? 1 in 20 million sprinklers go off by accident. That is a fact. You have got more chance of winning the national lottery than you have a sprinkler just going off. One guy said to me, it'd more than likely happen to me. Would it? Well, do the lottery next week. That'll pay for the damage. Sprinklers reduce water damage. Windsor Castle, the fire. Do you know how much water the fire brigade are expected to put on Windsor Castle? About 1 million gallons. They estimate that 200 gallons of water, if it'd been sprinkled, I'd have put it out. They estimate the fire brigade put about 1 million gallons. It's not their fault. It was spreading. They had to keep pumping water in. It reduces water damage. Sprinklers, what if I burn the toast? Will the sprinklers go off? Because people think that. No, they don't. Sprinklers have an RTI of about 50. Smoke detectors are 0.5. A sprinkler is 100 times less sensitive than a smoke detector. In other words, it won't go off. Sprinklers go off, there's a fire. It's got to be a fire. Sprinklers generally go off when the fire is about 1 megawatt, which is quite a significant fire. I'll tell you what, Bruce Willis has ruined the industry. In the movies, he sets one sprinkler off, what happens? They all go off. What's happening there then? It's rubbish, that's wrong. If there's a fire in a room, the only sprinkler that goes off is the one in the room. They don't all go off. That's a movie. It'd be a rubbish film if you had to go down and light them all, wouldn't it? It'd take him hours. But people believe that. They believe, and this is the biggest belief, they believe if a sprinkler goes off in a building, they all go off and the building's flooded. Rubbish. Only the one in the room. In the James Bond film, in Casino Royale, he went to the airport, set the sprinklers off, automatic, the whole lot went off. That's not a sprinkler system. What's happening there then? That's not sprinklers, that's drenchers. Sprinklers don't operate like that. Sprinklers do not all go off together. Now, sprinklers can actually keep temperatures below 100 degrees. So there's always this implication between sprinklers and glazed partitions. If sprinklers can keep the temperatures well below 100 degrees, isn't the option of using ordinary toughened glass instead of the very expensive insulated glass, should that not be considered? Now, that's not mentioned in the code, but it doesn't mean you can't apply it. If you've got a room that's fully sprinklered, especially fast response sprinklers, why do you need all that glass? Now, there has been an argument about this, saying, well, what happens if the glass is not cooled universally and it goes off, the sprinklers go off and it cracks the glass? Well, I'm sure they've done some tests on it, or they should do tests on it. It's not the case. Generally, if sprinklers go off, you don't necessarily need all that glass. It should be at least considered. Now, the trade-offs of sprinklers. Sprinklers offer major benefits. Logically, some trade-offs should apply. And it's generally not the case. Why? People say, what if they don't work? What if they don't work, mate? What if they don't work? All right then, what if a fire door don't work? Have you ever asked that question? Let's look at reliability. This table here shows you the reliability of sprinklers. And as you can see, it bases from 86 to 100%. That's based on research from around the world. Now, it's the reliability of sprinklers that roughly 90%. However, if reliability is based on design correctly, you are looking at 99% reliable. That is really a good figure for how reliable sprinklers are. Do you know there did some fire door surveys? They went out there, fire doors, and let them open, see if they're closed properly. And in the end, they found that only half of the doors were reliable. Have you ever wedged open a fire door? You tell me, have you ever wedged open a fire door? Have you seen those 9-litre door wedges? You know, the red ones, the extinguishers. Have you seen them? People wedge open fire doors. All I'm saying is sprinklers are more reliable than fire doors, but people don't ask that question, do they? Now, they do get hold open devices now. They're making them more reliable. However, they're twisting. You know these doors, they're holding up the magnet. If they put them wrong, they're twisting the door. What's getting at is it's actually still causing problems. So fire doors are not that reliable. Centre Parks, there was a fire in Centre Parks in April 2002. It was a loss of operation for 15 months. Now, the fire safety design operated as expected and everyone got out. However, Centre Parks went straight back to their architects and the designers and said, hey, our building's just burnt down. And they said, well, did everyone get out? Yeah, well, there you go, mate, no one died. Yeah, but what about our loss of operation? What they didn't realise was, although the building met building regulations for life safety, they didn't have the enhanced protection. They were unaware of that. And now they've sprinklered all of the Centre Parks. Because a lot of the clients from Centre Parks went to Oasis up the road. They lost a lot of the clients. Do you know what the Centre Parks did? They bought out Oasis. Now they're sprinklered everywhere. Sprinklers, life safety and property. Schools. Do you get involved with schools? Well, the 7 schools as part of a PFI project were to be sprinklers. And the trade-offs they allowed them to increase the compartment sizes. The compartmentation was reduced from an hour to 30 minutes. They used toughened glass instead of the 30-minute fire-resistant glass. They allowed them to extend the travel distance. Fire service access did not comply. They allowed them relaxations. And they allowed them inner room relaxations. And reductions in insurance premiums. Insurance companies love sprinklers. They will generally reduce the insurance premium. The result was a safer school, safer for the fire service, and a net saving over the PFI contract. Someone said to me, yeah, but what vandalism? The kids come along and smash the sprinklers. I tell you what, if a kid comes along, smashes that sprinkler head, mate, he's going to get soaking wet. He won't do that again. It won't. But arson is the main cause of fire in schools. Sprinklers will stop the school burning down. It might get localised damage, but it won't burn the whole school down. That's the main problem with schools, is arson. Now, what about chip pan fires? Someone said to me, you can't use chip pan fires. Yes, you can. In Clackeaton, they did tests. What they do is they put a special head in a kitchen, and it can even put out a chip pan fire. What it is, a special head, it comes out like a mist. It's not a mist system, but it comes out like a fine mist, and it can even put out a chip pan fire. People say to me, what if the sprinklers go off and you're in a room full of electrics? Will you be electrocuted? They've been watching too many films. In the movies, you're in a swimming pool, 100 people, they throw a toaster and everyone starts going zzz, zzz, zzz. Have you heard about fuses? Have you heard about them? They blow the fuses. No one has ever been electrocuted in a building because the sprinklers went off. All the fuses are trip. Now, tenability. We're talking about tenability. The whole code's based on tenability. What is the definition of tenability? This is it here. The maximum concentration of a toxic fire product or intensity of a physical fire parameter that can be tolerated without causing incapacitation. That is the definition of tenability. Did you know if you have more than 12,000 parts per million of carbon monoxide for 5 minutes, you will die? If you have more than 6,000 parts per million, you're incapacitated. In a non-sprinkler building, you'll get 30,000 parts per million. In a sprinkler building, you'll get 700 parts per million. Did you know if you have more than 250 parts per million of hydrogen cyanide for 5 minutes, you die? If you have more than 150 parts per million for 5 minutes, you are incapacitated. In a non-sprinkler building, you'll get 200. In a sprinkler building, it was so low, it was off the scale. Oxygen, you need oxygen to breathe. If you have less than 5% oxygen for 5 minutes, you die. If you have less than 12%, you're incapacitated. Non-sprinklered, 2%. In a sprinkler building, 19%. Sprinklers can even maintain tenability in the room of origin. They did tests in Clackeaton, and the only time the person died was when the fire was on the bed. In other words, simulating smoking in bed. Sprinklers can maintain tenability even in the room of origin. Now that is critical, especially in the care industry. Because that's what you should be putting sprinklers in all the care industry. There's a resident in the bedroom, they can't get out. There's a fire in there, the staff come, there's smoke under the door, they can't even open the door. Sprinklers can maintain tenability even in the room of origin. Now, sprinklers in design. My brother's an architect, and he's been an architect for a long time. And I've been trying to persuade my brother to put sprinklers in. Every time I've got together with my brother, we have a bit of a laugh, and I keep saying, put sprinklers in. And he wouldn't. Why? Because of all the myths. What happens if all go off? What happens if this? And I couldn't persuade him. My brother did the design in Leeds. And he was walking around with the building control and the fire officer. And the fire officer, student accommodation, it needed a firefighting shaft in this building because of the height. And this fire officer said to my brother, I'll tell you what, mate, you put sprinklers in this building, residential sprinklers, and I will not ask for that firefighting shaft. What did my brother think? Did my brother think those people will sleep in their beds tonight? Did he think that? No. Do you know what he thought? How much? He went back, he costed out a firefighting shaft with all the backup generators and the cost, and how much was it going to cost to put sprinklers in? It turned out a lot cheaper to put sprinklers in, and he could have a nice designed lift, a nice glass lift, and possibly get a design award. In other words, sprinklers maintain them, and they also can give you design flexibility, so it's worth at least asking the fire officer, if I put sprinklers in, will you be more flexible in my firefighting shafts? How does the code recognise the benefits of sprinklers? Well, the code says, if you've got a sprinkler, as you can see on this table here now, if you've got an ultra-fast fire growth rate and you put sprinklers in, it knocks it down by a factor of 1. A 4 fire growth rate becomes a 3. A 3 becomes a 2, a 2 becomes a 1. That's how the code changes. Now, if you've changed the risk profile from, say, an A2 to an A1, what have you done to everything in that design? You've changed the lot. You've changed the travel distances, the exit width, stair width, type of alarm, management. You've changed everything because you've reduced the risk. In other words, by putting sprinklers in has a massive impact on the design of that building because everything's been affected by reducing the fire growth rate. You've reduced the risk profile. That's the benefit. This code recognises the benefits of sprinklers. And it doesn't require life safety sprinkler systems. And this again is another bone of contention. There must be life, no it doesn't, there doesn't have to be life safety. And the reason is they've only knocked it down by one. They've only knocked it down by one, so sprinklers would be, that's reasonable that a 3 will become a 2 without having the life safety sprinklers, which are a lot more expensive. And that's why, because they haven't actually varied it a lot. Now this code does also recognise residential sprinklers. They're also recognised. You can get residential sprinklers, and if it's residential, you can reduce the risk profile of that residential from a C3 to a C2, which again has a massive impact on travel distances, everything else. However, one thing, it doesn't do it for the fire resistance. In the fire resistance tables, if it's residential sprinklers, you can't change the risk profile for that, so be aware of that one. But it does recognise residential sprinklers, it does recognise BS9999. What about mist systems? Can you accept them? Because this is another question that I get a lot. Can you accept mist systems? Now, where it is proposed to modify the risk profile by using a fire suppression system other than a sprinkler system, it will need to be demonstrated that this system achieves the equivalent standard of fire protection and reliability. In other words, that means you can actually accept them, but you've got to make sure that these mist systems are installed by competent persons. Because mist systems have a real problem because they haven't got a full British standard because they can't maintain this 5mm residue level which sprinklers do. In other words, mist systems are brilliant systems, they really are, and you can accept them, but again, make sure it's a reliable company. They're very reliable, they use much less water. It basically, the effect of mist systems are, it scrubs the smoke to improve tenability and it reduces smoke damage. They're looking at mist systems a lot in hotels now, because what they're saying is if it's a mist system in a hotel, it goes off, localised damage, there's less water damage everywhere else, and you can accept it for the BS9999. Now, just as an example, bonfire. What's the last thing you should use to get a bonfire going? And don't say hedgehogs. Petrol. Watch this video here now. This guy here is trying to set fire to a bonfire. This is petrol he's using. Now, this is petrol he's using on there. Not paraffin, petrol. Now, has he put enough petrol on? Nope, get a bit more on. Now, he's even making a fuse. It's not gunpowder, it's petrol. What is surrounding that area now? Petrol fumes. That whole area is surrounded by petrol fumes. I'll tell you what, you wouldn't do that anymore, would you? Price of petrol nowadays. Anyway, he just loaded all that petrol on. If you want to look away, now is the time to look away. No one's injured, but if you want to look away, look at that. Now, again, another example here of bad management. Foundations. These foundations in Dubai were being dug out, and they found they had a bit of a leak. But the problem is, the bit of a leak turned out to be a bit of a serious leak. Now, is somebody in trouble? Can you imagine ringing up the boss? Can you come down, boss? We've had a bit of a leak. Can you bring a pump with you? Somebody is in trouble in that design there. They've not worked something out. The next thing I'm going to look at is management. This is an issue. Management is very important. There's no point designing buildings, putting sprinklers in, smoke detection in, and if no one maintains the building, management is essential. And BS9999 requires a certain level of management, and the level of management is dependent on the risk profile. The code has got 3 different management levels, management level 1, 2 and 3. This table here shows you, table 6 here, basically the management levels for different risk profiles. For example, an A2 risk profile requires an A2, and an A2 risk profile requires a management level 2. Whereas an A3, which is a worse risk profile, it's got a fast fire growth rate, requires management level 1. Do you understand? The management level depends on the risk. It depends on, it doesn't mean management's not important, it is important, but it depends on the risk. Lower risk profiles can have a lower management level because the outcome's lower. Now what you do then, you go to table 7, so say you've got an A2 risk profile, you go on the table and it tells you on table 7 the factors used in assessing these management levels, and it gives you the sub-clauses. So then you go through the sub-clause, if it says management level 2, you get that level of management level 2, cut it out and put it in the fire safety manual. Then you go to fire training, cut it out, put it in. For example, here's just one example. Fire training. In a level 2 system, the training ensures that there are sufficient numbers of staff trained in all aspects of fire prevention, fire protection and evacuation procedures, and they should be able to use the appropriate extinguishing equipment and media so as to provide full coverage of the building, but it has no contingency provision. So that's a level 2. A level 1 would have to have exactly the same, but it would have to have the contingency provision. Do you understand? The different levels of management are dependent on the risk profile. All you do is you cut out the relevant section, management 2, and you paste it into the management level so the building occupier realises what level of management is important. Now, ADB does not do this, but it implies you have to do it because you have to do it under the Regular Form Fire Safety Order anyway. Management is important in all buildings. Is this well designed? Look at that picture. Is that well designed? I don't know which came first. Was it the screen or was it the camera? But is that well designed? What about that one? It's not quite finished yet. What about that one? Is that Alvida's aim pet? Does that look level? Who's got a spirit level? Fire drills. Do you do fire drills in your workplace? How frequently? Well, the code says based on the risk. General guidance is every 6 months. Now, should you tell people when you're doing a fire drill? Should you tell people? If I told you, lot, 3 o'clock is a fire drill, what's happening at 5 to 3? Hey, handbag ready, coat on, off we go. One guy, he told everybody 3 o'clock was a fire drill. He looked outside at 5 to 3, there's 18 people at the assembly point having a fag break waiting. It's going to go off soon. Would you set the alarm off if they're all out there waving at you? That's the problem. That's the problem. Should you make them realistic? Well, try and make them realistic, but you've got to be careful. Make sure no one's going to be injured if you do a fire drill. Don't do a fire drill and there's a guy up a ladder, he falls off. In other words, take into account who you should tell, who you shouldn't tell, but make sure when you do your fire drills, you document them and make sure that no one's injured during the fire drill.